is only 4 words. This one's for John.
This one's for Pat.
What is going on? Welcome to NFL with Kyle. I'm actually hold on one second. There we go. Okay, now I got the right mic. Let me know if you guys can hear me in the chat. What is up, Nash? What's going on, brother? I'm actually really excited about this episode because there have been things. I haven't gone live in about a week on this channel, and there's some things that I've noticed, and I don't think it's gotten public attention. And if you haven't heard, you're going to really lose your mind over it. And I'm gonna tell you. No, I'm not going to tell you now because then you're going to be able to find it out. I'm going to tell you in a little bit. We're also going to be ranking 8 NFL divisions. That's all of the divisions, 4 divisions in each conference, by the quarterback. This is a really interesting thing to do. Because it does appear that the quarterback position is stronger than it's ever been in the NFL. Okay, so that is what I titled this episode, and that is what I wanted to dive in. And I'm actually going to just I'm going to put the title up here for anybody that joins during this so they know what we're talking about. Ranking 8 divisions by quarterback play. Okay. Bill said, but got a dip. Grassi eats Saga. Watch parties going on right now. I'll watch it back, though. Take care of Kyle for me, Nash. Awesome. Tell Tom Grassi I say hi. And let's get right into it. So which division had the best quarterback play in the NFL last season? If we go strictly by the statistics, it wasn't the AFC North, the division that had Lamar Jackson, the MVP. And it wasn't the divisions with Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Josh Allen, or Mahomes, the quarterbacks that finished second, 4th, 5th, and 7th, respectively, in MVP voting. And it also wasn't the AFC South, who had a generational talent, CJ Stroud, just something that you only see maybe once a decade. It wasn't the AFC South either. The numbers actually point to the NFC North as having the best quarterback play in total last season. Now, you might be saying that's bogus. I don't believe you. But if you add everything up, the NFC North ranked first among the 8 divisions in completions, passing yards, passing touchdowns, and passing first downs. It's also a division that is getting a lot more attention following 3 combined playoff wins in last year's 2024 playoffs. So the Lions, Super Bowl aspirations, plenty of hype with the Packers. And then you look at the Vikings and the Bears, both using a top 10 pick on a quarterback. One of them is one of the biggest quarterbacks to come out of college in some time in Caleb Williams. So there's plenty of reason to be optimistic about the NFC North. But when I say NFC North, is that immediately a thought to you? This is the best quarterback division in the NFL. I mean, how can you rate the NFC North ahead of other more, I'll just say it, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen? I mean, if you just go division by division and you take the top 2 quarterbacks in each division, there's arguably 4 divisions that are stronger than the NFC North. I mean, it would be difficult to even wedge the NFC North into your top 5 divisions in this area heading into 2024. But if you look at the numbers last year, it is the NFC North. So this is the challenge and the fun of breaking down these divisions from top to bottom. How much does last year matter? How highly do you rate potential after 6 teams drafted in quarterback round one? Are you going to immediately assume Caleb Williams is going to be really good? What about JJ McCarthy? The injury factor has to be weighed. Is there going to be injury concerns with Joe Burrow moving forward? Is Russell Wilson going to be the guy, or is Justin Fields going to get an opportunity? It's a confusing mess. It's all tangled up. And we are going to try to give our rankings on which divisions have the best quarterback 1 through 8. So several of these groups were hard to separate, but here is my best shot at doing that. Number 1, I think you have to go with the AFC North. You got Lamar Jackson, who is the reigning MVP, coming off of just an amazing season. Now, I know when you lose in the playoffs, it's very easy to just kind of forget about what happened. Like Dak Prescott's probably going through that now. Dak Prescott played amazing last year. He happened to choke in the playoffs, but if you're just looking at regular season quarterback play, Dak Prescott was arguably a top 3 quarterback last year. Lamar Jackson, arguably the number 1 quarterback last year. But because he loses the playoff game, it's like Lamar Jackson just gone back to the little box that we put him in, right? You know he's great, but you're not sure if he can win the big game, but you have hope that he can. But I would say after the season Lamar had last year, I think he took a couple more steps towards greatness, a couple more steps towards being a Hall of Famer. I mean, that's what happens when you're a league MVP. He did take those steps. Let's not forget about it because he didn't play a good game in the playoffs. Then you have Joe Burrow, who is making $55 million per year, and he's guided Cincinnati to a pair of AFC championship games, and he's even taken them to a Super Bowl. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who has, of course, the unpopular contract with the most guaranteed money. But why did they give him that contract? Because he was really good with the Texans. And the thinking is that Deshaun is going to get back to where he was. When Michael Vick went to prison for, I think it was 3 years, don't quote me on that. It did take him a little bit of time to get rolling when he came back. And it looked like right before Deshaun Watson injured that shoulder that he was playing. He was very close to being back. I'll put it that way. He looked as good as we've seen him in 3 years. So, I mean, I'm pretty high on Deshaun Watson this year with the Browns and that defense. And we're at arguably the 3rd best quarterback in the division. And you still have the upside of a top 5 quarterback if Deshaun Watson can get back to where he was. And then finally, we have Russell Wilson / Justin Fields. And the fact that this is the worst quarterback in the division is a Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson. Look, I was watching a game. You know, YouTube has full games. I was laying in bed and I wanted to watch a game that I wouldn't be emotional about because I wanted to go to sleep, but I also wanted to hear the announcers. And for some reason, I just take the best naps when I hear, Troy Aikman or Joe Buck. But anyway, I decided to pick a game that I wasn't emotional about, and I just clicked the first one because I didn't remember the game. I didn't remember the outcome. It was the Seahawks versus the 49ers. Okay. I'm not sure if this was Jimmy Garoppolo's first or second year, but it was a while ago. Richard Sherman was on the Seahawks. DK Metcalf was, Richard Sherman was on the 49ers. DK Metcalf must have been in his first year. Deebo Samuel was a rookie, I believe. Yeah, he was a rookie in this game. I remember him saying that. So this was quite a while back. In the announcers, I think it was week 7, and the 49ers were 6-0. They hadn't lost a game yet. And then you had the Seahawks, who were, I think, 5-2, something like that. So this was a really important game at this time. But one of the things I noticed is that the announcers were saying, if you had to pick a quarterback right now or a player to win MVP, it's really hard to not pick Russell Wilson at this point. And it was kind of like, wow, Russell Wilson's come so far from that, right? He's never won an MVP. He's never had an MVP vote. But on this particular season, this is the kind of talking that was around him. And I know you might be saying, Kyle, that's a long time ago. Russell Wilson's not going to return to what he was. But playing under Pete Carroll, having a defensive-minded coach, relying on the running game and playing solid defense is exactly what the Steelers do. Sean Payton wanted a Drew Brees. He wanted quick decisions, quick throws, high IQ. He was just wanting something. And I'm not saying one's better or one's worse. It's just a different flavor. Russell Wilson is not Sean Payton's flavor of choice. But I think that Mike Tomlin and him are going to have a pretty good marriage. So when you think about the worst quarterback in the division having the upside of maybe winning 10 games, I mean, if the Steelers can make the playoffs with Mason Rudolph and frickin' Kenny Pickett and whoever else, and firing your offensive coordinator in the middle of the season, if you can do that kind of stuff, and Najee Harris was having a down year last year, and they still found a way to do that, what makes me think that with Najee Harris playing, because they didn't pick up his fifth-year option, so he's going to be playing for a lot of money. Russell Wilson's going to be playing to keep the gold jacket on. I don't know. Like, the fact that this is the worst division speaks volumes, and that's why I think the AFC North has to be number one when you're ranking the quarterback position. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson. I mean, there is a world where three of those quarterbacks have a top 5 season. Now, is it going to happen? Probably not, but you could say top 10. I don't think that's a stretch. And you definitely could say that all 4 are going to have a top 15 season. Okay. Moving on to number 2. This one might shock you a little bit. The NFC West. Now, hear me out before you say Geno Smith, Sam Howell. What are you talking about? Kyler Murray might have a really good season this year. And I know that we've all kind of forgotten about 2 years ago when Kyler Murray started 6-0 with the Cardinals and things were going really good because now, really well, now it feels like that's a long time ago, a new head coach. But you look at the draft they had, the amount of draft picks. I think they had 12 draft picks. A lot of playmakers coming in. I think Trey Benson is going to be a really good running back for the Cardinals. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a good connection with Kyler Murray. Then you go to the Rams, and I said it yesterday on the Only Football podcast, but I really do believe that Matthew Stafford could take his team to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, it sounds crazy, but you heard what Sean McVay said about he feels like a spring chicken with all this young, youthful energy around. Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. They finally found their running back. They drafted Jared Verse and Brendan Fisk. They still have a solid corner on the outside. They have all the tools, and that's why they had such a late season playoff push, was because they figured it out pretty late. And the thing is Matthew Stafford was dealing with injuries. If they can get one healthy season out of Matthew Stafford, I think they're going to pick up right where they left off. And I think the Rams might be better than people think. And then, of course, you got the guy that actually went to the Super Bowl in the NFC, and Brock Purdy, who is a game manager. And I just wanted to say that's the quarterback's job, A. And B, that game that I was watching, the Seahawks against, who was it? The Seahawks and the 49ers. The 49ers were 6-0 with Jimmy Garoppolo. So keep in mind, Jimmy Garoppolo was also somebody that we considered a game manager. When you thought of top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, nobody ever said Jimmy Garoppolo, but he was a locker room guy. People loved playing with him. And more importantly, he did what Kyle Shanahan asked of him. Kyle Shanahan is such a good play caller that when you bring in a really talented quarterback, you might, like a Caleb Williams, right? You wouldn't want Caleb Williams, making it up. Patrick Mahomes. The style of Kyle Shanahan is that he thrives with quarterbacks that can just sit in the pocket and let the genius play design actually unfold. Brock Purdy has figured out how to do that, and that's why he's having so much success. And he's also doing it at a high level. It's not like he's just he's definitely a top 10 quarterback in the league right now. Okay. And then finally, you have Geno Smith and Sam Howell. But those are three quarterbacks that you're really excited about if you're a fan of those three teams. And then you get to the Seahawks, and yeah, maybe the Seahawks aren't your number one choice. But looking at Kyler Murray really quick, he showed, at least to me, that he was back late last season. And definitely the Cardinals agree, because he had all that guaranteed money kick in, and they would have had to make a move if they didn't want that. Purdy is near the top of the second tier QBs in a lot of people's minds. I think Murray belongs in that same group, but closer to the bottom. He's had the ACL surgery, so we need to see if he comes back strong this season. But like I said, Marvin Harrison Jr. is now on the team. That's definitely going to move him up the list. Stafford has said that he's at the end of the road. Okay. It was a tough start last year, but when they got going, they really got going. So I think at 36 years old, Matthew Stafford still has one really good season left in him, maybe even two. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is 40. He could play for 4 more years. I don't think he will. I think if they win a Super Bowl this year, he may come back for 1 more year to try to repeat. But whatever happens in that second year is probably hanging up the cleats at that point. So Sam Howell, by the way, was a 17-game starter for the Commanders last season. I thought he looked actually really good for what he was dealing with. Like, he threw a lot of passing yards. He had a couple comebacks, a 21-point comeback. He did good on, like, fantasy-wise. He put up a lot of good yards, and I just wonder if Geno Smith's not playing well or he deals with an injury, if Sam Howell might come in and just never give the job back. And then number 3, you guys might hate me for this one. And this division's tricky to rate because it features 2 established stars and then 2 battles between 2 young and bridge quarterbacks, and we land on the AFC West. Denver Broncos, of course, got the battle between Bo Nix and Jarrett Stidham. The Raiders have the battle between Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. And then you have your 2 stars in Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Any division with Mahomes is automatically going to throw you up probably to the top, close to the top. He just won his 3rd Super Bowl, and he's trying to win 3 in a row for the first time in NFL history. Stidham had a few eye-opening moments with the Raiders 2 years ago, and he earned his first quarterback win with the Broncos in January last year. But he's been a mixed bag overall. He's definitely not somebody you're super confident about. There is hope that Nix is going to end up being the starter, and a lot of people that analyzed the draft and I guess they've just always said Sean Payton was a really good fit for Bo Nix. But it could take some time before Nix is a difference maker. But he could definitely come in and start week 1 with all the experience that he's had. And then the Raiders quarterback situation doesn't hold much appeal right now. And I've been talking about that, where the Raiders are in a weird spot because Gardner Minshew can keep you in the playoff picture, but you don't think that he's going to get you to the playoffs or win a playoff game, which means you're going to win just enough games to not have a number 1 or number 2 overall pick where you draft quarterbacks. And that's assuming that he gets the start over Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell struggled really bad in his first start, but he settled in. It wasn't as bad. He had a 61.5 completion percentage, almost threw for 2,000 passing yards. He had 11 passing touchdowns and 5 picks and a fumble. But in the end, you have Mahomes and Herbert in the division. It makes up for those other 2 teams. These are really good quarterbacks. And if one of these other teams, I don't think it's going to be the Raiders this year, but if Bo Nix can really get going, this division might be ranked even higher next year. And at number 4, we got to go with the AFC East. The Buffalo Bills have Josh Allen. The Dolphins have Tua. Patriots, Drake May's probably not going to start from what I'm hearing. In training camp, Jacoby Brissett is just miles ahead of Drake May. They actually have Jacoby Brissett. He's doing the first team reps, and then there's 2 other quarterbacks that are splitting reps, and Drake May is working on fundamentals. So just looking at that, I think Jacoby Brissett's your starter. That's the weakest quarterback in this division, and then you have Aaron Rodgers with the Jets. So this division overall has a little bit of everything. There's the surefire Hall of Famer of Aaron Rodgers. There's the young superstar in Josh Allen, who will probably be a Hall of Famer. The vet without a long-term deal yet. And then you have Tua, who needs to prove himself again to get that contract that he's looking for. Brissett is definitely a bridge quarterback that's just trying to hold off Drake May as long as possible. But all 4 situations are very different. They vary quite a bit too. There might be some overlap in the games of Rodgers and Tua, but you wouldn't compare them. Tua's not there yet. Drake May and Josh Allen, we know what we got with Josh Allen. Drake May, number 2. A lot of people had him the number 2 quarterback in the draft. Jaden Daniels had such a good college season last year that it boosted him. But Rodgers and Tua are also coming off injury. Tua stayed healthy last year, but the year before he dealt with all the concussions. So with Rodgers and Tua does come injury concerns. Rodgers is entering a season where he'll turn 41 years old. I don't know if the injury helps him or hurts him. Because he has a whole season worth of football that he didn't play. And he could just keep his body healthy. Of course, an ACL is bad, but now that it's recovered, I wonder if that'll help him somehow. The Jets have given him some strong tools to work with. They bring in Mike Williams. They have Garrett Wilson. This could be a playoff team. I expect it to if it stays healthy, but it's hard not to worry. And Rodgers is, when he's playing his best football, he's one of the best in the league. And then Tua hasn't gotten that contract. People debate whether he's worth it or not. Is an extension looming around the corner? If so, that could change the entire dynamic of Tua's upcoming season. There's a difference between playing with the security of a contract versus playing for a contract. And Brissett, I mean, there's not much to say about Brissett. He's a dependable bridge quarterback. Drake May is the future. How fast the baton gets passed, I'm not sure yet. It probably depends on how Jacoby Brissett looks in the first 3-4 weeks of the season. But Drake May might just be too gifted to not have him starting, right? We've seen that happen. We got Jinja in the chat. He says Colton Richardson, number 1, baby. Just fucking around. Yeah, I gotta say, I personally think that the Colts or the AFC South is going to be one of the better divisions quarterback wise. If Anthony Richardson pans out, you have 3 superstars in that division. So we'll definitely get to that. The next division coming in at number 5, we have the NFC East. You got to go with the NFC East. Okay. I mentioned it in the beginning. Dak Prescott had an all-time great season last year. They got Daniel Jones, Jalen Hurts, and Jaden Daniels. Now, whether you rate Hurts ahead of Prescott or vice versa, they're both safely in the top 12 quarterbacks in the league. And it's a pretty strong division quarterback-wise. But it could depend on how good the other 2 teams are going to be, Jaden Daniels and Daniel Jones. So Hurts took a step back from being a runner-up to MVP 2 years ago. He threw a career-high 15 interceptions. and his injuries were evident. Like, I know he was playing through them, but you could just tell that something was wrong. The offensive coordinator was gone. The Eagles just weren't clicking. Now, should he return to form this season with the addition of Saquon Barkley, this could be a really good team. And they also have to get in sync with their new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. Of course, Prescott enjoyed a rebirth season last year with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. So these kind of situations can just take off right away like CJ Stroud did. But we'll have to wait and see. For Dallas this season, the problems lie with the offensive line. Hasn't been ironed out yet, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. They don't have a ton of firepower besides CeeDee Lamb. And, excuse me, Bill is watching. Oh, I thought you said Bill is watching you. What's GCU? What is GCU? And I'll keep going while you tell me. So, Jaden Daniels is definitely going to be the Commanders starter week 1. Okay. Even if Dan Quinn isn't ready to make the call, it's definitely going to happen. Assuming that he can stay healthy until the season starts, Jaden Daniels is going to be the starter. And he does have a really lean frame, so that's why the injury concerns come up. But he is a clear offensive rookie of the year favorite at this point. When you saw how good he was his senior year, and that is one of my favorite things when I'm drafting a player, is to look at, okay, this player is really good, but let's look at the line graph and see where the player's trending. And if you have a player that's going constantly up and then their senior year, boom, they shoot all the way to the top, that makes me feel really good about the trajectory that he's on. Assuming he can stay on that, the Commanders might have gotten themselves the best quarterback in this year's draft. I've called Jaden Daniels my favorite quarterback in this year's draft. I'm standing by it. Jaden Daniels starts week 1, and I think he brings value right away. The Giants situation has far less upside. Jones will have a chance to revive his career. They got a wide receiver in Malik Neighbors. He could be a true difference maker, but it almost feels like the Giants just didn't have a better option. So they're like, fine, we'll just stick with Daniel Jones. We don't have a quarterback falling to us that we like. They weren't high on JJ McCarthy, apparently. And they just said, you know what? We already gave him the contract. If he goes out there and loses a bunch of games, we'll draft one next year. Let's give him a weapon so he has no excuses, because then we'll definitely know, okay, he's got it or he doesn't. Malik Neighbors could be a true difference maker. No matter who throws him passes, he's just that talented. And me personally, I'm not counting out Drew Lock. I think Drew Lock gets a chance to get on that field. He's going to probably play better than Daniel Jones. Okay? I mean, his career's been really weird. He had some moments last year in Seattle. You remember the touchdown on, I think it was Thursday Night Football against the Eagles. That was a clutch throw. There's reason to be optimistic about Luck because he had the raw talent that got him drafted as high as he did. He's got a just monster arm. But he's been growing behind the scenes, holding the clipboard, but I think that is going to help him. I think he's going to look better than any version of Drew Lock we saw if he gets on the field. So overall, NFC East, top 5, coming in at number 5. Going into number 6, okay, we have the NFC North. And the NFC North, I said this in the beginning, if you go just based off passing touchdowns, passing completions, and passing yards, the NFC North was the best quarterback division last year. And this almost feels unfairly low, but so much for the North's promise lies in the hands of kids, young players. In a year or two, we could regard Love, Williams, and McCarthy as the nucleus of the league's young quarterback talent. But on the flip side, all three have question marks and I personally don't have any, but you could make up some easily. With Jordan Love, is he going to be able to continue the kind of season he had last year, especially when you look at how good Jared Goff played? You're going to need Jordan Love to play at a really high level. Caleb Williams, a lot of hype, which sets him up for either meeting those expectations or more than likely underachieving, just because the bar is set so high. And how is he going to deal with that? It's just like any quarterback. We're not picking on Caleb Williams. Any quarterback that is a rookie, you would have these questions. How will they deal with adversity? Okay. One of the good things about Caleb Williams is that he dealt with adversity at USC. That's one of the things you like about Bo Nix. You have JJ McCarthy, who didn't really experience that. You have Jaden Daniels, who I guess experienced it a little bit, but the type of adversity I'm talking about with Bo Nix is that he goes to Auburn and Jared Stidham's the quarterback, and then he has to get transferred. He goes to a new place, a totally different system. Then he has to earn the job. Just like that kind of a grind, right? Caleb Williams has always been that guy. Jordan Love, he really turned a page and got an identity. But Caleb Williams, this is going to be a different kind of adversity this year. He's going to be the Bears quarterback week 1, bearing something unforeseen, but it won't be shocking if he takes some time to settle in. Not too different from what we saw from Love last year. Even with Chicago facing a manageable schedule, his upside's tremendous, but how quickly will the Bears offense fire on all cylinders? We know that they have a ton of talent. We know that they have a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback, a new running back. There's just a lot of new. 2 new receivers. On paper, it looks great, but it might take some time for this offense to really gel. Both Chicago and Minnesota feel like they feel like strong QB situations for a rookie to enter, but how quickly McCarthy earns the job remains unknown, because Darnold could hold him off for a little bit. He's coming from Kyle Shanahan. He's coming from a place that can coach you up and get you playing at a high level. Either way, the Vikings appear to have better options now than they did immediately after Kirk Cousins went down last season with the injury, when they had to get the Pasternak and all of that. So Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, they have weapons. This is an offense where either quarterback won't be asked to carry the team on their back. We expect solid play at worst, but will Darnold or McCarthy deliver anything special? That's the question, and I think that's what's hard to say right now, and that's what has them at number 6. At number 7, and Grassi Cinematic Universe. Kyle, is that less than? I can't remember. Hopefully it's the greater than symbol. I'm looking it up right now. Hold on. Math less than symbol. I could never remember it. I know the alligator greater than is to the right. And yes, we are to the right. Oh, God. All love to Grassi, though, but that's ultimate compliment there from Jinja. And at number 7, we have the AFC South. There's no younger quarterback division in the NFL than this one. And arguably no group with more upside. Lawrence is the guy that just got the massive extension. We know that he's already secured a long-term future with the Jags. But I think that what's fascinating about this division is that there's some real boomer bust potential. Okay, Stroud was a marvel as a rookie last year. I've been saying this all offseason. There's no reason to expect a sophomore slump with this. I don't even know, is he a guy or an alien? CJ Stroud is going to be really good this year, just like he was last year. People that are expecting a sophomore slump don't realize that CJ Stroud is not just any quarterback. He just came into the league and almost won MVP as a rookie. Okay. So you could say that when you have a season that good, that maybe he doesn't put up the same stats, but that's not the same as a sophomore slump. A sophomore slump is when you're considered one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and then the next season you just have like, oh, I don't really know what happened. That's not going to happen. Okay, if you're telling me Stroud is going to go from 4,600 yards to 4,500 yards, I wouldn't consider that a sophomore slump. But adding Stephon Diggs, I just don't see it. You're going to get Tank Dell back. There's no way. Stroud's year 2 journey could face a couple more speed bumps just because there's a tougher schedule. But CJ Stroud is that guy. Then you get into Anthony Richardson and Levis. Those are the ultimate wild cards. They were both 2023 draft picks, and they had promising moments as a rookie, although we did have small sample size. Richardson started 4 games, but he played every snap in those games. He looked good. He looked good in the preseason. He suffered a concussion, and then later he had the season-ending shoulder injury, one that he's still rehabbing, but I've been following that injury. He's on pace to start. He says he feels great getting another year in the system. He says he's miles from where he was last year. Richardson also had some leg injuries in college. He's a physical specimen. He was on, I forget who it was, but he does Freaks List. This guy is insane. His combine performance is why he got drafted as high as he did. He's extremely dangerous if he can be on the field and healthy. But we need to see a full season out of him to make a proper judgment. And then you got Will Levis, who threw 4 touchdown passes in his first game, his NFL debut, and then he threw 4 touchdown passes combined for the remainder of his starts. At times, he had poor ball security. He ended up getting a foot injury, which ended his rookie season. But the Titans have made major offensive line and wide receiver upgrades this season. And now Levis has an opportunity to go out there with a better team than he had last year. And maybe what we saw week 1 is more of the type of performances that we can get, not week 1, his debut. Maybe that version of Will Levis can be what we see on the field this year. Can he stay healthy and thrive in this new offense that's going to be coached by Brian Callahan, the guy that is responsible for Joe Burrow being so great? I mean, on paper, just like every team in the offseason, they look pretty good on paper, but we're going to have to just wait and see with this. I don't know how to feel about Will Levis. Honestly, if there were a way to describe it, it would be indifferent, which is say being indifferent towards somebody is worse than hating them, because if you're indifferent, then you don't even think about them. I don't mean it in that way. I just mean, like, if he plays better, I'll be surprised. If he plays bad, I'll be like, oh, okay. I'm just like, just show me. I'll reserve any opinion. You just show me. And I know you're like, well, that's no fun. All right. If you're forcing me to make a decision, I'm going to say Levis isn't the long-term guy with the Titans. But that's if you're really forcing me. I wouldn't just come out and say that because I don't feel that way. I thought when we saw Will Levis play week 1, the first thing I thought is, man, this guy might be a steal, fall into the second round. And then you got the NFC South coming in at number 8. And the NFC South is down a bit. The Buccaneers extended their divisional reign by going 9-8, so not a great season. And they went 8-9 over the past 2 seasons. But the QB names don't look horrible on the surface. Granted, Young had a rough rookie year last year. I don't think Bryce Young is I don't think he's going to work out in the NFL. I've been saying that. I know that if you're a Panthers fan, you probably hate that. And as solid as Carr and Mayfield were statistically, they are always going to have their share of doubters. Plenty of haters even gave the Falcons a hard time for dishing out $45 million per year to Kirk Cousins, who's coming off an Achilles injury. But you can't say that they aren't capable of potentially having good seasons. If Cousins is healthy, he'll probably thrive in Atlanta, skill position talent. You look at Kyle Pitts, Drake London, who's the other receiver? I'm blanking on his name. They Bijan Robinson. I mean, there's just so much talent on that team. And going into the offseason last year, people thought Atlanta could win the division. A lot of people following Atlanta were like, this is a really good team on paper. So if Kirk Cousins comes out, I mean, this is a true game changer. But we're going to have to wait and see how that injury, I don't think the injury is going to affect him that much. I think Atlanta is going to be a solid team. With the addition of first rounder Michael Penix Jr., things got a little confusing and you started wondering, well, if Kirk Cousins isn't able to go week one and Penix does really, really well, what are the Falcons going to do? And if Cousins suffers a setback or gets hurt again, Penix is going to come into the game, and what's he going to look like? And then you have Derek Carr. And Derek Carr had a strange first season in New Orleans, although he limited his fumbles and finished up with his best touchdown to interception numbers in several years. He had a hot December and January where he had a 74.4 completion percentage, 1,343 passing yards, 15 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. So that really helped get his numbers to that point. But with a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, is he going to be able to thrive again? And me and Rick talked about this last week. Like, what is your thinking of Kirk Cousins? Because we've seen him play at a top 12 level. We've seen that out of him. But New Orleans, just since Sean Payton's left, just something seems off. And Derek Carr just might not be good enough to be the answer to whatever it is. And then Ginger said, so what happens with Malik Willis? Ma'am, sorry, I had to chew my gum. It was melting. That's a really good question. I don't know. Now, when Malik Willis came into the game against the Chiefs, I think it was Sunday Night Football, he looked awful. He looked so bad. He really looked like a guy that shouldn't be in the NFL. He looked like when the Broncos during COVID had all 3 quarterbacks disqualified and they started, what was it? Not Hendon Hooker, Hilton. First name starts with a T. I can't remember his name. Broncos start wide receiver at QB. Kendall Hinton. I can't believe I forgot him. He's a legend. It looked like Kendall Hinton was in the game. So I don't know. Do you believe in Malik Willis, Jinja? GCU is Grazi Cinematic Universe. Okay. I see it. All right. Mayfield loses Dave Canales to the Panthers, which is going to help Bryce Young out. But don't forget, Baker Mayfield is getting a coach that worked with him in the Rams. So there is some continuity there. Can Baker Mayfield break out of his good/bad season career track? He's kind of been hot and cold. 2023 was arguably his most well-rounded NFL season, and it was Baker Mayfield's first season in a new system. I believe in Baker. I think Baker could have a great season. That's why I have Tampa winning the division over Kirk Cousins. They kept Mike Evans. They kept Chris Godwin. They still have the core team together. They drafted a new running back because they weren't getting that much production out of I'm blanking on his name right now, but he had a whole thing this season where he said he wants to average, 4.8, 5 yards a carry, because that's what the great running backs do, and how he underachieved for his standards. And that's why Tampa drafted a running back. So having healthy competition there at the running back, I think Tampa's going to be a more improved team this year. So is this a terrific quarterback division? No, it's not. But there are some redeemable elements for sure. I look at Kirk Cousins, Bryce Young, Derek Carr, Baker Mayfield as a lot of the guys that felt unwanted, right? Bryce Young's an exception, first round pick, but Kirk Cousins kicked out of Minnesota. Derek Carr thrown out of Las Vegas. Baker Mayfield, we already know they went with a masseuse, or a guy that likes massages, over the guy that won you your first playoff game in years. So there's a lot of redemption in this division. And I mean, I like watching all these teams play. I don't think Bryce Young is going to work out, but Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield, I think, are going to have solid seasons. Derek Carr is going to maybe be like a 15, 16. I don't see him having a bad year. And then Bryce Young's probably 25, 26 to 32. That's just my opinion. So that is my rankings of the top quarterback divisions 1 through 8. Once again, I had the AFC North at number 1 with Lamar, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. The NFC West comes in at number 2. Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, Brock Purdy, Geno Smith. AFC West, Bo Nix, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Aiden O'Connell, just because you have Justin Herbert and Mahomes in that division. Then you got the AFC East, Josh Allen, Tua, Jacoby Brissett / Drake May, and Aaron Rodgers. NFC East at number 5, Daniel Jones / Drew Lock, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels. The NFC North, number 6. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to move the NFC. I'm going to move the NFC. Oh, it's really difficult. No, I have it right. Caleb Williams, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Sam Darnold / JJ McCarthy. Number 7 is the AFC South. CJ Stroud, awesome. Trevor Lawrence, great. Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, we'll have to see. And then, of course, the NFC South was the last one at number 8. And Jen just said, I was being sarcastic. Willis is trash. I would love it if Tennessee started Willis. That would be hilarious. That would be funny. Will Levis would be in the weight room just, I don't know if you've seen his during the combine, he was taking like shirtless selfies. So he'd probably be cycling steroids, just pissed off, and he would maybe even change his position to running back or linebacker. There is the latest news from today. Jonathan Gavin, defensive end, who's spent time with the Packers and in the UFL, is working out for the Cowboys. The Packers have cut kicker Jack Podolensky. I don't know this guy. The Chargers have finally signed Ladd McConkey, their second-round pick. The Jets have signed 2 offensive linemen, and the Steelers have cut Denzel Mims and Trenton Thompson, a safety. And we were talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan, arguably the greatest quarterback in Falcons history. I think it's Michael Vick, but it's a debate. And he will be inducted into the Falcons Ring of Honor. So, I mean, 2 pillars of the Falcons franchise are going to have a permanent recognition for all their contributions. So Matt Ryan and owner Arthur Blank will be inducted into the Falcons Ring of Honor this season. The team announced Tuesday. This was the statement. Team president Greg Beadle said, On behalf of the Atlanta Falcons, it is a privilege to recognize two of our franchise icons as they enter our Ring of Honor. The co-founder of Home Depot, Blank, purchased the Falcons in 2002, overseeing a team that made the playoffs 8 times from 2002 to 2017, including a run to the Super Bowl in 2016. We don't have to talk about that Super Bowl. Under his direction, Atlanta's franchise has grown in value from the $545 million he paid to purchase them in 2002 to $4.7 billion. And man, buying a sports team is just such a lucrative thing. And that's why they say the rich get richer, because you got to be really wealthy to do that. But man, you look at these teams and how much money they are worth compared to how much it was when they purchased them. It's just an insane jump. That those numbers are according to Forbes. And then Blank has also garnered numerous awards for his work in the sports business. Most recently, he received the Sports Business Journal's Lifetime Achievement Award. Since Arthur purchased the team in 2002, results on and off the field have elevated. And his unwavering dedication to the fans and the city of Atlanta is worthy of this recognition and so much more. Matt Ryan, meanwhile, rose to prominence during his 14 years spent with the Falcons, who used the 3rd overall pick in the 2008 draft on the Boston College passer and reaped the benefits of their selection immediately. If you remember Matt Ryan's first season, he went 11-5 and had a playoff appearance in his rookie season, and he was the offensive rookie of the year. Ryan blossomed from there, helping the Falcons reach the postseason 5 more times in his career and peaking under offensive coordinator, you guessed it, Kyle Shanahan, who guided an explosive Falcons offense to the NFC title and a Super Bowl appearance. So for everything Matt Ryan's done, some of his best accolades, he earned NFL MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and First Team All-Pro honors in 2016. Definitely his best season. He completed 69.9% of his passes for almost 5,000 yards and 38 touchdowns during that magical season. And that was a really, really, really good season for the Falcons. I can't believe they choked. Man, you start to wonder if Kyle Shanahan is cursed. You look at these 49er things that have been happening. You look at what happened with the Falcons, and it's like, what if Kyle Shanahan is like Peyton Manning? They're just like the greatest regular season coaches and players, and then you get to the playoffs and things get a little bit different. I know that was the story with Manning for a long time. He can't play in the cold. He's still one of the greatest of all time. But you start to wonder if Kyle Shanahan's going to be in that group. Like, one of the greatest coaches of all time, some reason couldn't win the big game. I think eventually he'll get one, just like Manning got 2. Statistically, Matt Ryan assembled quite a resume in Atlanta. Overall, if you combine all of his seasons, he completed 65% of his passes, almost 60,000 yards, 367 touchdowns from 2008 to 2021. It's crazy that Matt Ryan was, man, I guess I didn't realize how long he was there. 13 seasons. It's a little bit longer. I would have guessed like 8 or 9. But no, he was there for 13 years. He started in 222 of a possible 225 games. That's really durable. And he posted 124 and 108 record as the starter. He's earned his place among Falcons legends. The quarterback known as Matty Ice will officially join the Falcons Hall of Fame on October 3rd. And it was cool. If you didn't see on Twitter, the Atlanta Falcons posted the whole moment where he found out, and Matt Ryan thought he was just coming to speak to the team, and they surprised him with the news that he would be inducted into the Ring of Honor. So that's a really good video. highly recommend checking it out. But yeah, I don't think it's much of a debate. Matt Ryan is either the best or second best quarterback in Falcons history. Or the last thing I wanted to do is talk about remaining holes, because this time of year, it's a lot different. We do this when the season first ends, when you know, okay, these are the glaring holes. But then you have free agency and you fill a lot of those needs. Then you get the draft, you fill a bunch of the needs. But then you get to this time of year where we're not talking about it anymore, but there's still needs on teams that haven't been addressed through the draft or free agency. So these are the 10 biggest remaining roster holes. And good organizations continue to work on their rosters throughout the year. But the bulk of the team building process has already passed as we head into the new season. So ahead of July training camps, clubs can fill gaps with veterans, some of whom probably preferred to sit out the spring portion of the offseason. We saw quarterback do this last year, Joe Flacco. We're seeing Justin Simmons do it right now. It's like, yeah, I'm a veteran. I've earned the right. Who else did? Ndamukong Suh was doing it. He was just joining teams late in the season when he knew, okay, this is a playoff team. I might win a Super Bowl. Let's do it. Why not? But these guys typically don't want to be at July training camp in the heat. They just want to stay healthy and mentally prepared on their own terms and then join the team later. Talent still exists all over the open market. I mentioned Justin Simmons. You have Stephon Gilmore and other players like that available. Some players are overcoming injuries, like Connor Williams, the offensive lineman. He's going to eventually find a home. And as the players head into summer break, this is the perfect time to highlight the 10 biggest remaining roster holes scattered across the league. And this was going to be the last segment of the day. At number 10, you have the Dallas Cowboys. Okay. So we're going to start our countdown with one to argue about. This feels like a true test of theory that running backs are interchangeable. After years of Dallas going with one of the best running backs, highest paid running back in Ezekiel Elliott, the Cowboys are now going cheap at the position. Given the other rising costs on the roster, you got Micah Parsons, you got CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. You're going to have to go cheap somewhere. And the glaring issue is that there isn't a low-cost rookie option to lean on. It seemed like the Dallas Cowboys would have addressed this need in the draft, especially when you have Jerry Jones saying, we're all in. We're all in. And then they have one of the most boring off seasons in history. So the glaring issue is running back. Ezekiel Elliott played fine last year for New England, but he averaged a career low 3.5 yards per attempt. He no longer owns the every down back juice that he had when he first started the league. He's entering his 9th season. Zeke's best attribute at this stage is pass protection, which is really great because the Cowboys have a couple other running backs that aren't so great at pass protection. You got Rico Dowdle, who's a fine compliment, but can't really sustain a larger role. And then Deuce Vaughn, he got little play action last year for the Cowboys. He's really short. He was more of a special teams guy. I don't know if he's going to be a running back this year because the Cowboys are cross training him to be a slot receiver. Running a committee is an acceptable plan, but adding another quality body or two would definitely fill a huge need for the Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott doesn't have the juice that he had once, and that's really who you're leaning on. So not a good situation. At number 9, all right, Tampa Bay. And I said Tampa can win the division. They have a really good team, but they do have a glaring weakness, and it is edge rusher. Shaq Barrett, the Bronco that we let go away, the one that got away, Shaq Barrett, who left Denver, went to Tampa, and led the NFL in sacks. He's moving 200 miles south this offseason. highlighted a gap off the edge that the Bucs now don't have. Barrett led all Tampa Bay defenders last year with 44 QB pressures per Next Gen Stats. The next two players were interior defenders, Kalia Cansey and Vita Vea. And fourth on the list was departed linebacker Devin White. The top edge defenders left are Yaya Diaby, who had 26 pressures in 2023, coming off a stellar end to his rookie season, and Joe Tyron Shionka, who hasn't lived up to the first round hype. Right now, second round rookie Chris Broswell, who had 10.5 sacks last year at Alabama, is in line to see a hefty roll out of the gate. Todd Bowles likes to play big, but finding an edge remains necessary. The Bucs roster, like I said, it's a really good roster. You probably like the roster more than most, but adding some veteran help off the edge would really boost the odds of taking a fourth consecutive division title. At number 8, we have the New York Jets. The New York Jets, and their biggest need, tight end. There was a reason, seemingly, that every mock drafter projected that Brock Bowers would go to Gang Green leading up to the actual draft, and then it didn't happen. Tyler Conklin sits at the top of the depth chart right now. He's fine, but he's not one who's going to command attention or see a major leap in production. He is entering, I think, his 7th season in the NFL. So I don't expect him to, with Aaron Rodgers, you could make an argument that he's going to make him better. But fortunately for Conklin, the Jets didn't stockpile the position to push him for reps. Jeremy Ruckert has 17 career catches. Kenny Yobo has 4. Zach Kuntz has 2 career offensive snaps. And Lincoln Sefik has 0. And Kevin Folsch are undrafted free agents. Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to make whoever's on the field better. But you could really argue that this tight end room is the worst in the league. I know the Broncos have a pretty bad one too. But for as much talent that this whole team has, it would be really, really nice if they didn't have a glaring weakness at one of their positions. And they do at tight end. I still think the Jets are going to be fine. But if I were in charge of them, I would want to add somebody. You're going to end up heavily relying on Mike Williams, who is probably not going to stay healthy all year. You don't want to have double coverage on Garrett Wilson. So, yeah, add a real tight end. And if you're a Jets fan, you're like, we need an offensive liner. There's no Aaron Rodgers. Okay, that's fair. But there's still things you can do. You can still address the position in a different way. Then you have the Miami Dolphins coming in at number 7. And what they need the most is an interior offensive lineman. Last year, Miami's offense looked brutal, especially the offensive line, when Connor Williams suffered a season-ending knee injury. No, I didn't mean the Dolphins' offense looked terrible. I mean, their offensive line looked terrible. But their offense late in the season, you could definitely tell that they were missing. They were missing Tyreek Hill. And then when Connor went out with the knee injury, you could just tell. It was a hit, a brutal hit on the team, and it was one that was significant enough that the free agent is still not signed with a club. Connor Williams is still out there, as we just mentioned. The Dolphins responded this offseason by inking Aaron Brewers in free agency. He's an undersized guy who should fit beautifully into Mike Williams' run scheme, particularly as a puller, but can get overpowered in pass protection. He's allowed 10.7 one-on-one QB pressure percentage in 2023. That was the 3rd worst among centers, with at least 300 passing block snaps per next-gen stats. That wouldn't be as concerning if Miami didn't lose guard Robert Hunt in free agency and is counting on Isaiah Wynn to be healthy and consistent. 2 things he hasn't been the past 2 seasons. Playing in just 16 games in that span, both guard spots have question marks in front of a quarterback that you just don't want to take hits. Tua Tagovailoa. So the Miami Dolphins, they need an interior offensive lineman. Coming in at number 6, we have the New England Patriots. What do you think they need? A left tackle, right? The Patriots have depth questions throughout the offensive line, but the most glaring hole sits at left tackle. Not only are the options not great, but both are right tackles. You got Chuam Okorafor, who signed a free agent deal this offseason. He played right tackle in Pittsburgh, where he was benched last season for ineffective play. Caden Wallace, who is a third-round rookie who played on the right side. Notice I'm saying right again. The right side at Penn State. And these are the top choices to cover the blind side of Jacoby Brissett and eventually Drake May. Yikes. I mean, whoever ultimately locks down the job at left tackle, he's going to end up getting picked on all season, most likely. The left tackle question might also factor in how long the Patriots keep Brissett as the starter. New England also has questions on the interior where former draft picks haven't stood out, and there's little depth. The Patriots might not even be a 100% settled with their right tackle in Michael, who just re-signed on a 3-year deal. Anuinu kicked into guard with Wallace taking a run at right tackle. Questions abound. Not many offensive lines can handle injuries well, but health issues in this area would be devastating in Foxborough. With a rookie quarterback likely to eventually take over, they got to figure a way to get this offensive line more shored up, especially at left tackle. And coming in at number 5, we have the Chicago Bears. And the Bears, we say Caleb Williams is in one of the best situations as a quarterback, as a rookie quarterback, coming into just an amazing situation. But they do have one thing that they still need to address, and it's defensive line. Okay? Ryan Poles did a really good job of upgrading the offense, but the Bears and general manager Ryan Poles, they neglected getting an edge rusher complement to Montez Sweat. And personally, if I were the Bears, I know Rome Odunze was the sexy pick, but I would have drafted the best edge available. I think it was Latu. They could have drafted. I think it was Latu. You saw the Bears after they acquired Montez Sweat. You saw how good they were right away. Imagine if Montez Sweat had a running mate, you know? They're trying to beat you with firepower, drafting another wide receiver when they already have Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. But I think that what would have brought the most value to this team specifically would have been an edge. They don't go edge, and now they have a need. Okay. It'll again count on a combination of DeMarcus Walker, who had 3.5 sacks last year. DeMarcus Walker was drafted by the Broncos, went to Florida State. He's a player that I really believed in, but he hasn't taken that step. He's got the talent, so I could understand why the Bears feel comfortable with him, but he just hasn't proven it to be that guy. And then they have Dominique Robinson, who didn't even have 1 sack, and others, a couple other guys that I don't even know their names, that are going to work opposite of Sweat. So Chicago needs 2023 draft pick Gervon Dexter and Zach Pickens to develop into difference makers. The Bears are relying a lot on Sweat and Matt Eberflus's scheme to generate pressure. Chicago could be a team that lets the early part of the season play out before trying to add with the trade deadline if the youngsters get blown off the ball. But the Chicago Bears, man, they have such a solid team. But you could make an argument that having a good edge is like the second most important thing on a team. Look at what the Texans did. CJ Stroud, Will Anderson. Both of them won Offense and Defensive Rookie of the Year. I just think the Bears would have been smart to do that. But Rome Odunze works out, and they score 40 points a game. No one's going to be saying that. At number 4, the Washington Commanders. And you could probably think of a couple spots, but we're going to stick with a similar theme that we just talked about with the Patriots. and talk about the offensive line, because just like it's a big deal for the Patriots having a rookie, you need a good line. The Commanders have Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels' blindside sits in a pretty precarious spot right now. You look at free agency. Washington didn't address left tackle in free agency. They could have, and maybe they're gonna get Connor or one of the other free agents that are still available. Right now, they have 32-year-old journeyman Cornelius Lucas, who started double-digit games once in 10 seasons, and third-round pick. Let me say that one more time. Cornelius Lucas, who started double-digit games one time in 10 seasons. And then you have third-round pick Brandon Coleman, and those are the guys that are in line to complete for the gig. Guard Nick Algoretti was a backup in Kansas City for the past 5 years. He's going to be tasked with locking down the left guard spot. Right guard Sam Kamasi is a stud, and center Tyler Baidaz is solid, but the rest of the group has significant question marks. The hope is that Daniels is elusive enough to mitigate some of the issues, but that's asking a lot of a rookie with a defensive-minded head coach. So, yeah, come on, Commanders, get your shit together. Otherwise, you're going to make my prediction look stupid. I think Jaden Daniels has the best season out of all the rookie quarterbacks, but this would be the thing. If I had to pick something, this would be the thing that would prevent that from happening. Then you got at number 3. And Nash said, I missed 8 through 5. Can you give just the team and position? Sure. No problem. 8 was the Jets, tight end. Number 7, the Miami Dolphins offensive line. Number 6, Patriots left tackle. Number 5, Chicago Bears defensive line. Number 4, Commanders offensive line. Number 3, and now we're live, the Los Angeles Chargers, their biggest need, wide receiver. Okay. They did draft Brendan Rice. We'll get to that. But in Harbaugh's first season, the plan appears to be throw bodies at the receiver spot and just see who rises to the top. A true number 1 appears to be lacking. But remember what Jordan Love said about the Packers? Hey, we're just going to add a bunch of bodies, a bunch of sevens. And we're just going to beat you that way. It feels like the Chargers are trying to do that too. All right. They're just going to throw them all out there and see who rises to the top. Second round pick Ladd McConkey, who is signed today, could see a bunch of targets, but he's still a first-year player who never saw overwhelming production at Georgia, and he's dealt with injuries. You got Josh Palmer, who also missed games last year, and he profiles as a wide receiver 3 rather than a number 1 or number 2. And then you have 2023 first-rounder Quentin Johnson, who, if you watch Steve Smith break down the receivers every year, he said Quentin Johnson was a project. He is a big guy that doesn't know how to use his body, and he plays receiver too passively. So is he going to make that step this year? I'm not sure, but the Chargers seem to be really in need of him to do it. The Chargers seem to be counting on him to develop much, much faster than the plan was when they drafted him. DJ Chark, Darius Davis, and 7th round rookie Brendan Rice and Cornelius Johnson round out the group. And you look at those guys, and DJ Chark, okay, he's a jag. He's just a guy. Brendan Rice, I mean, anytime your dad's Jerry Rice, the upside's there. And then Cornelius Johnson. I mean, we'll see. I really feel like, although this is ranked so high, I really see a world where Jim Harbaugh is like, no, these are my guys, and I'm good with that. The type of offense we're going to run, we don't need Justin Jefferson, right? We drafted Joe Alt. We're going to run the football. And then we have a quarterback that's good enough to make these guys much better, like Manning and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. You have a quarterback like that, you feel a little more confident about having a bunch of 6 and 7s at wide receiver, because you know that Justin Herbert is going to bump him up a couple points. And I really think Jim Harbaugh is cool with this group. I don't expect them to make any moves. If they really were worried about it, they would have drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of the other Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze. They weren't, because that wasn't the plan. And at number 2, we're going to stick with receivers, and we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah, the Rockies win. Rockies win. Thank you for that update, Nash. At number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers need a wide receiver. Okay? So, whenever you talk to Steeler fans, the first comment about the Steelers is the receiving room. It is the glaring hole on this team offensively. It's George Pickens and a bunch of Riddler-style question marks. Third round pick, Roman Wilson profiles as the most likely candidate to step into a sizable role next to George Pickens. But it's a lot to ask for a low production mid-round rookie to immediately play a substantial role in the NFL. However, we've seen the Steelers strike gold in the draft in the past, especially at the receiver position. Perhaps the fastest man in Hawaii can become the latest wide receiver to find in Pittsburgh. The latest wide receiver find in Pittsburgh. The rest of the gaggle isn't as promising, with Van Jefferson entering year 5. And we can stop hoping for a breakout campaign out of him. Calvin Austin and Quez Watkins profile as gadget options. Denzel Mims was cut today. Marquez Callaway and Scotty Miller are fillers. Pat Freiermuth will play a significant role. He's a really good option. Darnell Washington, I think he's a good option. He was drafted last year. And then you got Connor Hayward, and he's going to see an increased role too. But it'll be a surprise if the Steelers don't add some kind of wide receiver before week 1. No doubt about it. The Steelers still need, is George Pickens going to, he's still a young guy. It would be nice if they could get like a DeAndre Hopkins, somebody that's older, but still capable of being a wide receiver 1. Devontae Adams. Who's it going to be? I'm not sure. And I'm not sure what the Steelers are willing to give up. But even like a Calvin Ridley would just change the whole dynamic of this team. But keep in mind that Russell Wilson is the quarterback. The plan may not have anything to do with throwing the football. This is kind of like the Chargers, but not as much, because Justin Herbert is too good to not throw. But the Steelers genuinely might not have throwing the ball in their game plan a ton this year. So if that's not the game plan, then I don't know how much capital you're willing to give up to get a wide receiver that you're not planning on using, if that makes sense. So the Steelers need a wide receiver, though. And at number 1, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And they need an edge rusher. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The yearly questions about the Falcons' edge pressure continues. Last season, Calais Campbell, a former Jaguar, led the Falcons with 43 QB pressures per next gen. Bud Dupree was second on the team with 40. Neither is currently on the roster. So even their 2 best pressure players weren't exactly studly last year. Now they're not there. 48 edge defenders earn more pressures than Campbell did last season. The top 2 remaining edges left in Atlanta are Arnold Abakiti and Lorenzo Carter. Rookie third-round pick Braylon Trice currently has a path to get a ton of snaps off the bat, and that's a common theme. Rookies that are in line to have a significant role, not so much because of how good they are, but because of how bad the situation is for the team position-wise. The Falcons are counting on new head coach Raheem Morris to coach up the talent that he has, like he did in LA, to cover for the lack of pressures. But more help is needed here. And if the defense is going to help get Atlanta back to the postseason for the first time since 2017, they're going to need to address the edge rusher position. So there you have it. Those are the 10 biggest remaining roster holes around the league. Notice that the Broncos had none listed. That's because we're such a great team. And believe it or not, they say we're in a rebuild. If we're in a rebuild, hey, this is a good roster for a rebuild. Ginger said Pickens, Jefferson, Miller with Washington and Freiermuth. They could use a number one, though. Yeah. And you look at those tight ends, and it's like, is Mike Tomlin really thinking, is that keeping him up at night? We just need a wide receiver one. Highly, highly, highly doubt it. Somehow I feel like the Steelers and their identity and their play style this year is right up the alley of having just these guys. I think we'll date this June 19th, Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth, by the way. It was I had to work today, but I know some of you had off, and if you did, I hope you enjoyed it. June 19th has been a well-known holiday within the African American community since its inception in 1865. However, it's just recently become a national holiday. It's still taking time for certain federal businesses to give their employees that day off. So if you did get it off, hope you had a good time. NFL free agent Michael Thomas took us around Galveston, Texas, the birthplace of Juneteenth, to share the American story. And there was a video of it that was posted online. Definitely go and check that out. But yeah, always a good time to have a day off and sit and reflect and just enjoy time with family. So that is the last thing that I have. Nash, I gotta go to work tomorrow. Hopefully, where do you work, Nash? You don't have to give me like the address. Like, do you work at a grocery store? Do you work at a car dealership? Do you work at a mechanic? Do you work at a library? Ginger said worked in 94-degree weather today. It was gay. Yeah, dude, everybody has been freaking out in Nashville because they're like, dude, it's 98 degrees. I'm just not used to it. I just moved here, and I'm like, dude, it's 98 degrees every day in Miami. But I guess when you're not used to it, it's a lot. Nash works at a restaurant. Are you a host? Are you a dishwasher? Are you a busser? Are you or an assistant server or a server or a bartender or a barback or a floor manager? The happy gay. Of course, Ginger. Ginger was so happy in the 94-degree weather that of course he meant gay as in happy gay. Happy gay. But thank you guys for tuning in today. Definitely please like this video before you head out. It helps the algorithm. Comment if you guys are watching this later. Comment, do you agree? Do you disagree about the 8 divisions by quarterback? What do you think about the biggest needs that are remaining? Does your team have a need that I didn't cover? Put it in the comments after this uploads, and check out tomorrow. We'll be live on the Only Football podcast. You can just type that into the top of YouTube, the Only Football podcast, and you will see our podcast there. We'll be going live tomorrow with Rick, and in between me being on the Only Football podcast, of course, you can find me here at Kyle Kitzman at YouTube, and of course on X as well. But Ginger, Nash, you guys were in here the whole time. Appreciate you guys sitting in here and shooting the breeze with me. Nash said, busser, dishwasher, pizza box, folder, pizza maker. Dude, that's awesome. I worked at a pizza restaurant in South Beach called Lucali, and they have a chain in New York. Dude, the food was amazing. They had a Nutella pizza for dessert. Just absolutely ridiculous. But I would fold pizza boxes, and we called them pies. We didn't even call them pizzas, but that's awesome, man. Hope you have a good day tomorrow. Be positive. You never know whose day you can brighten up with just a smile and an acknowledgement. Nash says it's owned by my grandma. Dude, that's even cooler. The story is getting way cooler. So you work at a pizza spot that's owned by your grandma. I'm going to have to come get a slice one day and do a pizza rating 1 to 10 because I actually love pizza. Like if I had to pick one thing for the rest of my life, it would be pizza. Pizza, sushi, tacos. Those are the 3 things that I would, and mac and cheese. Ginger said, see you guys. What time are you guys playing tomorrow? So, Ginger, it'll be about the same time today. It'll be 8:30 Central Time. 8:30 your time. You're in Central. So, 8:30 tomorrow. But, yes, I'm out of here. You guys have a fabulous night, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the Only Football Podcast. Love all of you, and I'll see you soon.